The Leafs fall to the Sabres in the Heritage Classic as Auston Matthews finds himself in hot waters with the NHL Department of Player Safety. We'll look at that and more on today's edition of Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Leafs podcast, your daily fix for all things Leafs. I'm your host, David Morassutti from Sportsnet, also a writer for the NHLPA. And with Mike away on vacation this week, I've decided to bring on a little bit of help to help co-host the show today, my buddy Austin Owens. Just a reminder that the Locked On Leafs podcast is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so be sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcasts from. And you can now catch us up on YouTube. Austin, let's wave to the nice people.
Hello.
For those of you who are listening to this on the audio version, we just gave a little hello. But today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline is where the game starts. Unfortunately, if you put a bet on the Leafs to win today against the Buffalo Sabres, it didn't necessarily go well. So we're going to kind of cover everything in the loss to the Sabres in the Heritage Classic, which appeared to be quite a nice day for hockey, even though March and Hamilton can be kind of hit or miss. But and there were some questions of how the game would look, but I thought it looked pretty good. So we'll kind of discuss that. We will unfortunately have to break down Auston Matthews potentially maybe missing out some games after he was called by the Department of Player Safety. He's going to have a hearing for his hit on Rasmus Dahlin late in the game. So we'll kind of discuss that, what we think could happen. Will he face supplementary discipline, or may he get out of this unscathed? We're not too sure yet, but we'll kind of go through that. And to end the show, we're going to discuss at least potentially having to make some moves, whether that's Kyle Dubois, finally having to pull the trigger on some trades, or is this going to have to be something we're going to have to be a little bit more patient about? With that being said, Austin, today's game kind of encapsulated the Leafs a little bit in terms of good start. Both teams were kind of feeling things out in the first period. Second period, things really opened up for offensively. We had 4 goals in that period. And then it just felt like the Leafs of the last few weeks showed up in terms of Peter Mrazek fumbling those 2 goals that eventually became the game winners for the Sabres, and defensively they just kind of looked out of sorts. Would that be kind of a fair assessment when you look at that game?
Yeah, I think when you look back at any game that the Leafs have sort of been a part of for the last couple of weeks, I think, goaltending has obviously been at the forefront of the conversation, and for good reason. I mean, I don't want to be too hard on them, but you can't get a save from Jack Campbell and you can't get a save from Peter Mrazek. Over the last stretch of games, I believe it's since January, they have the worst save percentage in the entire league at around an 870, something like that, 872. Like, it's not possible to consider, no matter how good your offense is, to win hockey games with that kind of performance in the cage. And we saw it against Arizona in their last game. We've seen it throughout the last couple weeks, as you alluded to. It's an uphill battle when you can't get saves at key junctions of the game, and I think that's what the Leafs went through in this game. You get the lead, you give it up in rather quick fashion, then you get it back with an Auston Matthews goal. But then that's where, the offense dries up and you probably need more than 2 goals with how the goalies are playing. So it's not totally just on Peter Mrazek and the defense here, but yeah, you needed a couple more saves. It's another game where the Leafs have given up 5, and it's hard to watch right now. And I know we'll get to it later on in the show, so I won't, bag on the goalies too much, but yeah, it just feels like they're in that, bit of a rut where they just need, just make the next one and we'll be able to get it. It doesn't feel like we've gotten that next one. It feels like they've scored a goal and then it's been bang, another one, so on. And then the Leafs are playing catch up for the rest of the game, which is not a position they like to be in.
No, not at all. And I mean, considering the last 2 games they played the Sabres, Peter Mrazek has been outdueled by Craig Anderson. Craig Anderson made 34 saves on 36 shots. And it wasn't like the Leafs didn't have chances. They had their chances on Craig Anderson, especially in that second period. I think that's where really I think you're right in terms of they haven't had that save because you're seeing the other teams getting it. And that's what's caused the Leafs to lose these games. You lose the game. I mean, I look back to the Arizona one where Wedgwood makes that save, I believe, on Engvall late in the game that likely would have meant the Leafs win there in regulation. You look at, or overtime, I can't remember if it was regulation or overtime, but it was a nice save that basically kept the Arizona in the game. You look back to Thatcher Demko, against Vancouver, where the Leafs were just pounding them all night long, and he was incredible in that one too. So yeah, it just feels like when you see the other team getting the saves and then the Leafs aren't getting the saves, that's where it really you really start to feel it. And I felt like when TJ Brody had that shot go off his foot and in, some were actually kind of saying, Mrazek was a little bit out of position and maybe he could have actually made the save there. But it's also like you don't expect the puck to go off your defenseman's foot on a pass, right? I know what Brody was trying to do and it didn't work out for him, but like that's a goal right there where you're just like, okay, like we can give that one, you can give Mrazek the benefit of the doubt. But then when the third one that ended up being the backbreaker goes through on him, like he's the tough angle. No way that puck will go in on any other NHL goalie. We've seen them go in. It went in on Mrazek, but it's a goal like that, I think, that really the Leafs, I think, start to then lose the confidence a bit because it's just like, how are we going to come back in a game where our goaltender is giving up a goal like that?
Yeah, it's one of those goals, and just watching it back again a few minutes ago, it's, just out of the corner, a little flick in front for a rebound, and it goes in from an angle that no NHL goalie has business being beaten there from. And yeah, you're absolutely right. As a defenseman, I think on the bench and just even a forward, you're going like, we need that. And that's not that's not some crazy statement. Obviously, it's every person in that arena is going, come on, 35. We got to make that save. That's not one that in this scenario you're coming just out of into the third period, I should say. A tie game, we need that save. Like that outdoor game, sure, you could make some excuses for, there's been some weird bounces in outdoor games before and the conditions aren't always prime, but that's a backbreaker for sure. Like that's one where it's like, okay, we're going to have to score another 2 or 3 to, keep it in one because Mrazek might be in his own head. He might be fighting a bit. Like it's a tough one to watch as a fan. It's even tougher on the bench when, you got to come back, just coming into the third period with a Buffalo team that's obviously, very, very ready to go, and they wanted this game bad. Every game against Toronto they want to win, especially coming off that Jack Eichel game that was so infused with emotion.
Yeah, and I mean also the people in attendance too, right? Because that was a Leafs dominant crowd. Like there were a handful of Sabres fans, and when you compare it to the blue and white that you saw all across Tim Hortons Field there. And that's really the disappointing part, is that you had so many people there and it just didn't work out in that regard. And I will say this, because I had some reservations on how the atmosphere of that game was going to be. Hamilton, I hate to say it, when you compare it to some of the other cities that host outdoor games, it's not what you think of as a outdoor game type of venue, but I'll give them credit. They made it look good. The players, decided to up the ante a bit with those pregame fit. Like that was,
I'm just gonna say out loud that game was over when Buffalo walked in Flint Tropics jerseys. That's the Sabres by a million. Yeah, that's
I know what the
unbelievable.
Leafs were trying to do with theirs with the construction uniforms, but yeah, the Sabres took it on another level. And it was kind of ironic because this was the week that Will Ferrell was at Warriors games and dressed as Jackie Moon. So it kind of brought those feelings up and made that quite relevant. But I mean, yeah, major kudos to the Sabres for getting really creative. We saw the Blues do it with the Hawaiian shirts and shorts for the Winter Classic, which was like freezing. Like it was just the irony of that one. But this one was quite good. Before we go to break, I kind of want to get your thoughts on the jersey, because that was Mike and I were kind of when the jerseys first came out. I said I wish they could be better, just because I didn't like the way they were modeled and the arena looked like it's just an afterthought in terms of. I kind of feel like they wanted to have the arenas there, but they wanted the tee to be the most visible part. But that actually worked out a little bit better. When you saw the full fit, it looked a lot better than I was expecting.
It's like hockey jerseys in general, though, right? It's like when the thing that immediately comes to mind is when the NHL dropped the reverse retro jerseys, and we all went, "Oh, this jersey sucks. This jersey sucks. This jersey sucks." And for the most part, I mean, some of them were a bit of an eyesore on the ice, but there were a couple that are like, okay, these aren't as bad as you would say. I'm going to discount the Leafs gray and blue ones because those are not good. Those should never be worn again.
No, and apparently they're bringing back the reverse retros, but I don't know if they're going to redo the design or if they're going to just bring back the ones they did.
Bring back the same jersey, and I'm getting off topic here. Just make it white, blue and white. Simple. Having said that, the navy looked very good on the ice tonight. I think the day game helped it out a little bit. That might be a silly thing, but under the lights it would have looked sick too, but it wouldn't have had the same sort of glare or look on the ice. The navy on the white ice looks really sick. I wasn't a fan of these jerseys, honestly, and I'm still, jury's a little out on them, honestly. They're gonna, I imagine, wear them at least once or twice more this season since they have them. But I think it's safe to say Buffalo had the nicer of the two jerseys. They usually don't miss on their jersey designs. They are very good. Also, they need to bring back the black and red like tomorrow, please and thank you. Having owned the original Arenas jersey myself, the one that we're wearing is the alternate with the stripes on it and everything. That's the one I like the most. And I think if they had kept the stripes on it and made the Arenas just white, just a navy tweak of what they had as the current alternate, I think it would have looked great. I really like the navy, but I think the jersey it was just missing something for me. But it's not the worst the Leafs have had in the last 2 years. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, definitely so. And it kind of just helped add to the atmosphere to have those classic jerseys involved. All right, so we're gonna take a quick break here, but when we come back, we're gonna discuss the unfortunate situation the Leafs now find themselves in, where their leading goal scorer might not be in the lineup for their next few games, which are some key games coming up. So we're gonna discuss that. But before we do, I want to talk to you about our partners from Athletic Greens, who I just got a package from recently. It's a nice little care package that they sent us to try the products, because if I'm going to be doing these ad reads, I got to actually know what I'm talking about. And I got to, actually give my thoughts on the product. And, it's tough to find time to always, take your vitamins in the morning. Sometimes you're forgetting or you're in a rush. The great thing about Athletic Greens is that it's literally one scoop into, if you get the care package, it comes with the water bottle, so you can know how much you need to put the water in. It's very good. So, just so everyone that's, it's a newer product that we're trying out. So what is it? It's basically it's 75 high quality vitamin, minerals, whole food source, superfoods, probiotics, and adaptogens to help you start your day right. The special blend of ingredients helps support your gut health, your nervous system, your immune system, your energy, recovery, focus, and aging, all those things. So if you're looking to, spice things up a little bit and take care of your body a little bit more, Athletic Greens has all those things that can help you. I'm somebody that's just trying to find ways to improve my immune system. With the way COVID has affected everyone, it's whatever you can do to help your body, boost the immune system, make yourself feel good as well. I find it. I mean, there's no better product right now that I've tried than Athletic Greens, and Athletic Greens has over 7,000 5-star reviews, recommended by professional athletes, trusted by leading health experts such as Tim Ferriss and Michael Gervais. I think you get those guys involved, it will work out pretty well. So right now it's time to reclaim your health and arm your immune system with convenient daily nutrition, especially heading into the flu and cold season. We're in that right now. It's just one scoop in a cup of water every day. That's it. No need for a million different pills and supplements to look out for your health. To make it easy, Athletic Greens is going to give you a free 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D, which I got in my care package, and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. All you have to do is visit athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Again, that is athleticgreens.com/NHL Network. Take ownership over your health and pick up the ultimate daily nutritional insurance. All right, I want to welcome you back to the podcast. David Morassutti here with Austin Owens, my buddy who I worked with over at Sportsnet. I've also done some work with him with the NHLPA and many other shows. He's done a podcast with me in the past. So good that I was able to call upon him during this time with Mike on vacation, deciding he needed to take vacation on the week of trade deadline.
Based on what might happen, I don't blame him. It's going to be a bit of a hectic week.
Yeah, he basically said, "Yeah, you got it. Nori, you're good, David." I said,
"Yeah, just fine."
Oh yeah.
Is it just like the John? I know this is a Leaf podcast. Was like the John Gibbons, the double call of the bullpen here. Just one of those.
Oh, it kind of feels like that sometimes, but yeah, one of my favorite GB moments. Going with
Found the last guy in the rotation to fill Mikey here. That's okay.
It's all good. So
sorry, the
Leafs are in a tough situation right now.
Yeah.
Auston Matthews, look, if you missed the play in the third period, him and Rasmus Dahlin were going at it in front of the net. Rasmus Dahlin, gives him a cross check. He pushes back and Dahlin cross checks him to the ice. He gets up and retaliates by going for a cross check. Now, I've heard different accounts of this in terms of what people think Matthews' intention was and what happened. We know that he gets him in the head neck area, which if we know in today's NHL, that is a big no-no for cross checks. You can cross check a guy in the arm. I mean, to a certain degree, you will get fines. You will get suspensions if it's pretty bad. Stay away from the head and neck area. Some are saying he wasn't intending. He was trying to go on the shoulder, but the angle, he kind of got up too high. But the Department of Player Safety, to their credit at times, they know that when it's a headshot, they are gonna look at it. I know people have questioned the integrity of George Peros and what people think of his judgment, but it does not surprise me that Matthews is going to get a call. So I'm actually going to kind of read his what he had to say about it after the game. He said, "I haven't seen the replay of it. It's battling in front of the net. I felt like I kind of rode up his shoulder, and his shoulder pad rolled up a bit. That's hockey. It's competitive out there. Guys are physical and trying to compete." Dowling kind of also shrugged off to say that it happens. It's hockey. That happens out there. I'm fine. Auston Matthews does not have a history. So we're talking about a guy who's never been called upon by the Department of Player Safety in a situation like this, but it's still a headshot. I'm of the opinion he might get something. I think on the broadcast, Kelly Rudy said 4 games, and I am like, if Auston Matthews had prior history, I could see 4 games.
Yeah,
I think you're maybe 1 or 2 because of how it looked and how they will interpret what his intentions were. Because that's the other thing too. It's not just the act; it's the intention behind the act. Matthews is going to probably argue his case to say he didn't mean to hit him that high and he was going for the shoulder, but the NHLPA is also going to look at this play and say this was a retaliatory play because you were knocked down, you got up, and in retaliation, you went and you hit the guy. We saw the same thing with Jason Spezza with the suspension he had earlier, where he was able to get it reduced just because it was a really, heavy suspension. But the intent, they knew that he was retaliating for something that happened earlier in the game. So
yeah.
Where do you land on this right now?
I think 1 or 2 games is about right. I think, it's always tough with Department of Player Safety stuff because you're going to have that group that says that this is absolute BS and Matthews did nothing wrong. I've seen a large chunk of the fans saying if the refs did their job, then Matthews wouldn't have cross-checked it. That group, whatever. Matthews cross-checked him in the neck. It doesn't matter what happened before that play. And in this situation, and I think in most situations, referees are looking for that retaliation. I think Auston Matthews, I'm trying to pick what I say carefully because I don't want to anger anybody here, but Obviously, Auston Matthews earlier in the week had a non-call against him that ended up in the back of their net in overtime. That had him pretty peeved. And maybe he saw this Rasmus Dahlin dumping him in the blue paint there as him getting similar treatment and him not getting treated fairly by the refs. I know Oilers fans have felt this way with Connor McDavid a lot, especially in the playoffs, of not getting calls, even though he's a superstar. It's battling in front of the net to me. And the intention doesn't matter so much as the action, because Auston Matthews is going to say, hey, I didn't mean to. I hit him in the shoulder and it rode up and caught him in the neck. That's the defense. And you can't read into intention in that situation because it's heat of the moment. It wasn't premeditated. It was Auston Matthews didn't get a call and took a shot at Rasmus Dahlin, and it was not exactly tit for tat because Rasmus Dahlin didn't cross-check Auston Matthews in it. But yeah, it's it's tough. I think 1 or 2 games is right. It's a tough thing for the Leafs, but it's a bad look. What does it say about the Department of Player Safety if a guy gets cross-checked in the neck after a penalty wasn't called on the other side, regardless of the situation even, and they give Auston Matthews a $5,000 fine? They're going to say they're giving preferential treatment to the stars who get away with cheap shots. So, you have to show him some sort of discipline. Maybe it's just a game, just to say, hey, you didn't get a major for this, but we're going to suspend you just to put our foot down on this. And the big thing is he doesn't have a history. You're absolutely right. So I don't know what's going to happen. I think 4 games is ridiculous. I think that's maybe not a Tom Wilson or Nazem Kadri repeat offender level of offense when it comes to that kind of game level, but for a guy in his first time, like, no, not a shot. I can't imagine. It had to be something a lot worse than that, I think. It'd be 4 games. 1 or 2 makes complete sense to me.
Yeah. And look, I was reading the replies of the Department of Player Safety tweet, which can be a very dangerous thing. I understand that. Yeah. A lot of people are bringing up instances in the past where they've seen guys get worse done on them. Look, when it's happening in front of the net and the play's going on and literally nothing else is happening, there's a ref right there. They're gonna call it. They're gonna call it. I understand that Matthews takes his licks. We understand what happened in the other game against Arizona, but the NHL doesn't care about that. The NHL just cares about that one action and the reaction to it and how it's all going to work out from there. What I think was also important here, and look, the Leafs have 3 games this week. So a bit of a lighter schedule, but they're very tough games. You have the Dallas Stars, the Hurricanes, and the Predators. So let's say he gets 1. Then he misses Stars game. If he misses 2, that's 2 tough games without Auston Matthews. Especially when the team is struggling and he's been their most consistent, dominant player night in, night out. He scored his 45th of the season. He's 38 and 39 games or 37 and 38 games. It's just ridiculous right now what he's doing. But it's also a very tough situation for the Leafs to have to go through. But on top of that, I think what was trying to find the silver lining here is, but later in the game, Matthews takes a shot from Dylan Cousins, and Michael Bunting's right there, like, to stand up for his teammate. Then basically Michael Bunting goes after Dylan Cousins, and there's Tage Thompson, who is, I don't know if you've seen Tage Thompson.
Massive human being.
He is not someone you really want to get into it with, but Ilya Mikheyev just is like, I Russian, I take you off, my friend. And
he is very much Engvall-like in his giraffiness.
I think a little stronger than Engvall too.
Like, yeah, absolutely. He's more of a power forward. Engvall's more of a.
I was gonna say, like, Engvall's a giraffe. What would be the animal for? Because we know Lyubushkin's the bear. What would Mikheyev be? I actually kind of like a girl almost. The Russian.
I'm gonna just sit on that for a little bit and figure it out.
Yeah, but I think the important thing, I know Leafs fans have been very critical. Like, when John Tavares got basically manhandled to the ice by Tom Wilson and no one was there to respond to it. Yeah. I think you have to look at the situation and you have to look at who's on the ice. Michael Bunting, I expect him to step up in that situation. I didn't expect Ilya Mikheyev to, but it's good to see that he is willing to do it, and it shows this team is willing to stand up for each other, unlike what people might think about the team's toughness. So I think that's the good part. It's just now it's hard to see the good part when you're potentially going to be without your franchise center for 1 or 2 games or maybe more, depending on what the player safety decides.
Yeah, it's like then the line juggling begins, and you get JT on the top line, but then is it Kerfoot in his position? And then the domino of Matthews going out of the lineup is tough because the Leafs don't necessarily have that center depth that they would have a couple of years ago when Tavares just came in and Kadri was still around. That was a situation you could kind of mitigate, but now Kerfoot's playing mostly as a winger. You slide him into that center spot. It's tough. It's a good thing the trade deadline's coming up because it'll be a lot clearer what the Leafs are going to do lineup wise in the next couple days, I would hope. But We'll see. I don't know what they're planning on doing, but yeah, so it'd be tough if Matthews was out.
Yeah, so we're actually gonna take our final break here. We're gonna kind of discuss potentially what happens with Matthew if Matthews has to come out, but also what's the message this week from Sheldon Keefe and Kyle Dubas as 3 games left until the trade deadline, and there's been a lot of talk about what the Leafs should do. So we're gonna kind of just preview a bit of the week and what the Leafs should be looking to do potentially with not much margin for error anymore in the Atlantic Division. So we're going to get to that. But before we do, let's talk about our friends over at Built Bar. I have not had you try these yet, Austin, but I will send some your way. They are a great product. They're basically the first type of. See, this is a great part about this ad read. I'm teaching Austin about some of these great products. Maybe
I'm learning.
So Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy. They're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar. They're a treat and covered in 100% real chocolate. See, I already got them hooked in on those first 2 words.
Yeah, marshmallow.
So all Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, as I said, even the Puffs included. They're low-calorie, high-protein. You can replace your candy bar with these, mainly because they are way less calories than what you get with a candy bar, which can be between 200 to 300 calories. Most Built Bars are about 130 calories with 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. That's pretty good for something that's going to keep you going for a good part of the day. They have many flavors like mint brownie, coconut almond, and new for this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. They're all delicious. New flavors coming out all the time. So how can you get your hand on some of these? Make sure you go to built.com. Use the promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order. So that's LOCK15 for 50% off at built.com. Also got to go with our title sponsor for today, and that is Bet Online. It's that type of year again as college basketball's tournament. March Madness is literally starting up very soon. So if you're looking to put a little wager on that, you can go to betonline.net. It's the #1 source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's not just basketball. BetOnline has your continued source for all sports wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, it's where the game begins. All right, and welcome back to the Locked On Leafs podcast. David Morassutti here with my guest co-host Austin Owens, and boy, it's looking quite gloom right now in Leafs Nation. I mean, it kind of always does for some.
Yeah.
I kind of tried to avoid social media after this game just because people are in a really tough place right now because really the Auston Matthews situation is looming over this team. It's another game where you give up more than 5 goals, 4 or more goals in some cases, and I mean, you look at where the Leafs are right now in the Atlantic Division. They missed out on a big opportunity with the Tampa Bay Lightning losing 3 straight games. The Leafs could have made up some points because you want to get that second spot over Tampa. And the Boston Bruins are 2 points behind. It is the difference now between the Leafs potentially playing the Lightning or sliding down to play. At this point, you'd be playing the Panthers if you are the first wild card.
Can we just play the Habs again?
It's not a good situation right now for the Leafs, unfortunately. I I did notice today in this game, and Mike and I kind of been talking about this last week, was moving Ilya Lyubushkin to play with Morgan Rielly. I think Sheldon Keefe kind of had enough of the Timothy Liljegren on the top pairing.
Yeah.
I also think he was trying to get Rasmus Sandin and Liljegren some offensive zone time. And unfortunately, what it's looking right now with those two is that's going to be their usage. They're not going to be heavily reliant as defensive-minded players, which makes me to think of two things. One, Jake Muzzin really is needed right now. Obviously, we can't, magically wish for him to get back from this concussion. I think the good thing is we saw him back on the ice, but if there's any doubt of, there's been the goaltending talk, there's been the defenseman talk, but I think it's becoming even more apparent that they need a top four defenseman. Like, whether it's you put Riley and Brody back together and you get someone to play with Justin Hall and, whoever you bring in there, you can kind of slide in Jake Muzzin as a second or third pairing on the left side. But I'm really struggling to think that, yes, you can get a goaltender, but if the goaltender is going to be left high and dry because your defensemen just can't defend in their own zone, like, I don't see the point, right? You're going to spend all those assets to get like Marc-Andre Fleury, which Pierre LeBrun, you actually brought this up in our group chat, Austin, that he was actually believing that
he had said that. Sorry to cut you off, Dave. He'd said that he believes that a package for Marc-Andre Fleury would look something like a first-round pick. And then depending on if they had a contract in the other way to make up for Marc-Andre Fleury, it would be a mid-round. So probably a contract, it would be probably a fifth to a third-round pick, depending on they'd have to take back in the trade.
Yeah, and I mean, in the Leafs case, if you can get the Blackhawks to consider taking Peter Mrazek off your hands, it would make the acquisition of a Marc-Andre Fleury a lot easier. I think Marc-Andre Fleury would be the ideal person in that case because he's a little more experienced, and you think that with the defense right now, maybe he'll provide a little more confidence. I also think of if you're going with a guy that you want to bring in a third goalie, so you have a rotation of three guys, maybe Anton Forsberg with the Senators. If the Senators, they said they want to keep him. I don't see the logic in that, considering they have two goaltenders signed for next year on one-way deals. Like, are you giving up Flip Gustafson, a prospect, a younger guy, for Forsberg? Don't know about that, but he's been really good this year. That would be something I would consider. But I think right now with the Leafs, really, I think need to focus on is this week you have three very tough opponents. The focus should be on your defensive play and your defensive structure, because it won't matter what goaltender you bring in if your defensive structure isn't there. And I think they've gotten away from that too much. They had it at times this season for good stretches too. I think they need to get back to that. So my question here is it a personnel thing? Is it a coaching thing? What do you think it is?
I think it's personnel. It's hard to say with the coaching staff, because when Babcock was still around, it was, the players have zoned him out. He's lost the room, all those stereotypes. Now with Keefe, you see the same sort of problems happening now that he's a couple of years in and he's comfortable. I don't know. I think, the Timothy Liljegren on the top line with Morgan Rielly experiment is done. I'm pretty sure Keefe himself said that the Rasmus Sandin experiment on the first pairing was done after the first time he tried it. He did not like his game at all, that one game he played with Rielly. And just going back to Sandin and Liljegren, I mean, Liljegren is what he is. He's an offensive defenseman being used in a defensive-centered role where he's getting a lot of defensive zone starts. So it's always going to be tough for him to stand out. In terms of Sandin, I mean, I think he kind of mirrors Liljegren, where he's not exactly a defensive shutdown guy, but he's not an offensive stud. He's sort of that guy that's good at everything, but he's not going to be a superstar at just one thing. He's just solid all around. I think they just need to answer your question, the real scenic route around to your question, Dave. Sorry about that. They need pieces on defense. Like, Jake Muzzin could come back. If he gets injured again, he's probably done for the year. I think that's, with his concussion history, one more knock, and it could be talk of him being done. Justin Holl certainly hasn't been what Kaius envisioned he was when he signed that contract. Lyubushkin's been good. It has enough, just quite simply. And yes, you could go out and get a Marc-Andre Fleury. Sure, it'd be the big shiny piece that everyone's looking for right now.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you said. If the defense is out there just hanging him out to dry and sewering him every night, it doesn't matter what goalie you are. If you don't have good defensive help, it doesn't matter. So when I look at this team, it's, yes, Peter Mrazek and Jack Campbell have fallen well short of expectations this season. But I think if you have a limited amount of assets, because I wouldn't imagine Kyle Dubas is looking to trade multiple years of firsts unless he realizes this team is going for it. Like, this is the year, and I don't think that's the case. I just don't. You could get Marc-Andre Fleury, but I think you're better off spending those assets on defense and just hoping that Campbell and Mrazek can not figure it out fully, because I don't think they're going to get back to the Jack Campbell we saw last year, but get to a 900 would be lovely. Like, just a sub 900 goaltending is not going to get the job done.
We're looking for league average.
Yep, league average goaltending is all you need to win a Stanley Cup if your team gets hot.
Yeah, and you know what? I was going to ask another question here, but it might be kind of a moot point, because I also think this Leafs team, like, Justin Holl has the size I'm looking for in defenseman. He doesn't have the mobility I'm looking for in defenseman. I think they need to find a defenseman that's got a little bit more mobility to him, but also has the size or willingness to be able to clear the front area of the net. Because I don't think Rasmus Sandin can do it, and I don't think Timothy Liljegren can do it. And that's why I would like one of them to be able to carve out a role. But they're also, like, if you pair, let's say, like a Sandin with a Lyubushkin, I think that works really well, because Lyubushkin can he doesn't even need Rasmus Sandin clear that. He can do that all himself, because that's just what he's capable of. I just think it's either you got to put TJ Brody with Morgan Rielly. I think that TJ Brody, Justin Holl experiment needs to end, because I just feel like the chemistry is just not really, I think, as good as I was expecting it to. I was at the start. So it could just be you're getting someone that's a bit better on that left side with Justin Holl that can kind of save his bacon a little bit more. Because I don't think TJ Brody has got the mobility to do that. Like, at least Morgan Rielly has the mobility when TJ Brody needs a hand. He can be there for him, and vice versa. Rielly can be a little more secure. No, he has a defensive partner that's going to cover areas of the net. So I feel like if you're going to get a defenseman, I think it's that left side right now that kind of replaces Jake Muzzin, but not replaces Jake Muzzin. Or it's on the right side, and then you kind of have to figure something out with Justin Holl.
Yeah, you either have to add that top four piece, which is what everyone's looking for, that big shiny toy at the deadline, or you bring in a lot of defendable pieces that you can slot into your lineup. They tried it, maybe not the best example, but they tried it with Ben Hutton last year. It didn't quite work. Like, just those guys at the deadline aren't going to cost you too much, maybe like 5th to 7th round picks, but they're going to be good. I know a guy that the TSN panel's been floating a lot is Jacob Middleton out of San Jose. Kind of old school defenseman, just not very fleet of foot, just clears the net, but could be a guy that's useful to you in playoffs when it's not exactly going to be a end-to-end battle. It's going to be those wear them and drag them out games.
Yeah, and you also kind of, I know they're going to try to kind of think about the opponents they are going to play in the playoffs. Yeah. The Tampa Bay Lightning are not a small team. They're a pretty big team. I remember you and I saw the Tampa Bay live in person. Kind of hard to think of that. That was so long ago that we saw them.
It's a lifetime ago.
But the Leafs, I mean, that was, I think, a really good performance from Jack Campbell. But also the Leafs had a really hard time with Tampa's speed and size in the zone. They just Tampa was willing to do whatever they wanted to do in that game. So I think if you're the Leafs, you kind of need to figure out a way. Either somebody that's really good at, stopping zone entries, really good play in the neutral zone. I think the forwards can help out a little bit more with that. I feel like the opponent gets too much speed through the neutral zone and makes it really hard to defend when you're backing up all the time. The Leafs, and Justin Bourne has a really good article about this on sportsnet.ca. I think you guys should really check that out, because he's kind of looking at how it's kind of too easy for the opponents to get in and take a shot.
Yep.
and they get too much space in that defensive zone. So I feel like if you're Kyle Dubas and you're watching this, Ilya Bushkin was good for that because that's exactly what he stopped. But Ilya Bushkin can only do so much, and
He's
I
one
don't
of
think Sheldon
six.
Keefe wants to put him in the top pairing. It's just not
No,
where he wants to be.
the best situation for you as a team is if he's playing on your third pairing and just playing shutdown minutes and hard gritty minutes in the playoffs. Just yeah, it's tough. I like your idea of bringing in a Forsberg in goal and just having that extra option, but I think the best way to go about it at the deadline is you add depth and talent, maybe even at forward if the price is right. That extra guy just to go into the playoffs. You add to your defense, and then you hope that Jack Campbell, who, even though obviously with the injury Mrazek's played and with sort of recency bias, he's been the guy in net. I think Jack Campbell's your starter going into the playoffs unless they take a hard turn. And you hope that he gets back to, what he was doing when we saw him in that game earlier in the season against the Lightning, where he's just calm and collected in the net and making saves that, we're used to seeing him make over the last season and a half.
Yeah. I kind of think that's where the Leafs are right now. And I mean, just a final note for me on that is the one thing I don't think Kyle Dubas should want to have happen to him is this whole thing blows up because the goaltending is the reason. I know Kyle Dubas has had to spend assets to get goaltenders in the past. We think about why Jack Campbell was here in the first place because Michael Hutchinson just there was no trust in him, especially as the backup and Frederik Andersen having injury problems. So if you're Kyle Dubas, you have to keep that line open because I think that could be the difference between him having a job potentially next season or not. And it's a tough thing to say, but I think it's also kind of true in that you don't want that to be a reason why your job potentially gets lost because you couldn't address one position that you thought you were solid with, and you kind of backed them up not too long ago, and they've only gotten worse since then.
As good as Jack Campbell has played, I mean, the phrase is used all the time. It's sports is a what have you done for me now business, or lately, excuse me. And now, honestly, and Jack Campbell since the All-Star break hasn't done much of anything to help the Leafs win hockey games, as cruel as that might sound. And as nice of a person as he is, if he keeps playing the way he is, he might not even be in the starter conversation come next year. It's a cruel business.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's we're gonna wrap it up there. And there's gonna be a lot more of this talk going into the week. We have a few more off dates to kind of discuss, and I'm sure we're gonna hear a lot of things on the rumor mill with the trade deadline literally a week away. So something to keep an eye on there. So that will do it for us on the podcast. I'd like to thank Austin for stepping in for here, and I want to thank all you guys for listening and supporting the show. Make sure you go and subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. We're seeing those subscriptions going up. We're trying to get to that 500 mark so we can give away some swag. So make sure you go to Locked On Leafs on YouTube to subscribe, and you'll find out more details when that time comes. Please make sure you go and follow myself on Twitter at @D_Morassutti. You can follow Austin at _Austin Owens. Even though Mike's on vacation, I'll throw his name out there at Mickey_Canuck. He might have some vacation photos. You can kind of, shame him into not being around.
He had a hell of a pineapple shirt on the other day. I'm going to be honest, or maybe that was this morning. He's looking good.
Yeah, he's definitely living the life on that cruise. I was very, very upset when he told me he was going to be on the cruise because I wanted to be there. We could have done shows from the cruise. I know it's a vacation, but hey, we'll take a half hour
next year.
We're Locked On Leafs on the Royal Caribbean. We're going to make it work. We'll be back with another episode tomorrow where we will preview. Yes, we're actually going to have to preview another game against the Dallas Stars. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.